Alright, before we get into this video, I just want to briefly address some things I've said in prior videos of mine. Earlier this year, I made a couple videos saying that I was pretty much done with TF2. I was totally burnt out. I didn't want to do anything else with this game, whether that been content creation, whether that been being support the community, anything like that. And obviously I stick by that video because I still feel like TF2 is culturally in a very bad place. It's still very dark, very toxic, and there's still a little bit of doomer energy, but after the success of the Save TF2 movement, with at least getting bots out of casual, I think I can justify making some videos on this, at least to satisfy my own urge to create things. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into this video. If you're familiar with my prior work, you'll know that I'm a big critic when it comes to the cosmetics of TF2. Obviously, I like to judge things more positively, and obviously certain content feeds my needs more than others. Things like maps, weapons, those sort of things really give me some gratification when it comes to judging and dissecting what they do, how they function. But since cosmetics is the primary thing that TF2 has gotten over recent years, I feel like not even those things are above critique. So in this series of videos, I plan on dissecting what I believe are the top 10 and the bottom 5 of a cosmetics of any given year. And we're going to be starting with 2023. Obviously, I'd like to start with 2024 since I have some choice words with the cosmetics added in the summer update. But since the year's not quite done, I think we're going to save that for a later video. But for the time being, I might as well go over some of the criteria I use when it comes to judging cosmetics. First of all, authenticity. How well does an item fit TF2's original art direction? Versatility. How well does this cosmetic fit with other cosmetics? And desirability. How appealing is it to the general TF2 audience? In the last order of business today before I get into the ranking, I briefly just want to mention why I'm doing a top 10 and bottom 5. Obviously, there's a lot of negativity in TF2, and I'd like to acknowledge that when it's necessary, but otherwise, I'd like to sort of focus on the positive aspects of the game that are still there. Because despite all my concessions I have for Valve, I still think this community is the best part of this game, even though some of the community makes me very, very frustrated. But with all that baggage out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this ranking, starting with the first of our top 10. I just want to make mention of the Make Ogre for Heavy. This was released in the Halloween update of 2023, and I really think that it adds a lot to Heavy without being over the top. When it comes to Heavy's in-game role, he doesn't really give much respect. He's oftentimes a punching bag or a bullet sponge for other people, so Heavy's oftentimes a character that just gets used and abused. But I think the Make Ogre adds some subtle ferocity to Heavy's gentle face and kind of makes him feel more menacing without making him just grotesque and garish. On a more personal note, when I was first getting back into TF2 after liquidating my backpack earlier this year, one of the first items I picked up was a Cozy Cover-Up. It's an all-class cosmetic that adds a scarf and earmuffs, and I think it adds a lot of value to your loadout. Obviously in TF2 we only get 3 cosmetic slots. The more your cosmetic adds to your player model, the more valuable the item is to your loadout. And the Cozy Cover-Up has a scarf and some earmuffs, both which are paintable and both have styles to remove the other, which makes it kind of a shoe-in for a great item slot if you're going for any sort of winter-themed loadouts. On top of being cheap and all-class, it's an easy shoe-in for one of the top-tier cosmetics added to the game in a long while. The next item on my list is a little bit more subtle than most of the items will be on this list, but I think that's something that's kind of underrated in TF2. A lot of times when we're just being bombarded with particle effects, flashing lights, and gunfire, subtlety can kind of go underappreciated. That's why the Lazy Lounge for Demo Man is one of my favorite items added in 2023. Sure, there's a hat and a pants that goes with it, but I think that it manages to have a versatile, classy look without being too bright or garish, and it manages to fit into more sets than just the one that it came with. One cosmetic I didn't expect to say that is about as well was the classic Criminal for Spy. Obviously, when you see this at first, you're going to think, oh, this is going to be very shoehorned in, pigeonholed into the convict stripes or the bank robber loadouts, but it's actually a surprisingly versatile item. Just by changing the default balaclava, adding an eye mask and a hat, you'll be shocked how flexible this item truly is with all of its styles. The Stun Stew for Demo Man is also another item that sort of falls into this unassuming appearance. You would think that just on the surface it wouldn't have much going on, but the 3 styles it offers actually adds a lot of depth to it, and you fit into many different loadouts besides just the Stuntman or Demolition gimmick that are so common at Demo Man loadouts. When it comes to symbol cosmetics, I think the Brother in Blues is one of the best that's been added to TF2. Obviously, it has no shortage of fedoras and glasses in the game, but once again, we're hit with a very good value proposition. On top of just the fedora and glasses, you also get mud chops for most of the mercs, and that makes it an easy all-class hat to pick up really cheap. For every great hat added to TF2, there's also another great hairdo. I think for the engineer, the Clue hairdo is a great addition. I don't believe most TF2 players are going to be familiar with Columbo, but I think anyone can recognize that this cigar and haircut combo is really stunning. Similar to the last entry, I think the CQC feels like classic TF2 cosmetic design. On top of having really great thematic resonance with Soldier, giving him the solid snake haircut and bandana, the styles are super well conceived, and I think they'll fit into a variety of loadouts outside of just trying to be the stealthiest man on the battlefield. One of the worrying trends I find in TF2 cosmetic design is that there's a lot of classes that will get hats nowadays that are simply based off of older hats gotten for other classes, and I find that really lazy. The bigger man on campus, unlike the cleaners class introduced in the same year, I think manages to toe the line between laziness and clever. The BMC managed to give Heavy a new stylish body cosmetic that breaks new ground while feeling faithful to Heavy's design and the game's art style as a whole, whereas the cleaner's cap just feels like Valve could have updated the Liquidator's lid and saved us all a bunch of trouble and money. Now to finish off this top 10 list, I just want to end with something I refer to as the business casual for Medic, the Uberwear. I think the Uberwear managed to do something incredible for Medic. By taking away the lab coat and just revealing the suspenders and vestments underneath, they managed to make Medic feel like a totally new character just with the addition of one cosmetic. The only issue I find with Uberwear is that we can't take away the coattails and the lower half of the body. This small issue with body groups is the only thing keeping the Uberwear from being one of my favorite cosmetics in the game. But despite all that, I still think it's the single best cosmetic I had in 2023. But with the end of my top 10 list, I must unfortunately get on to the bottom 5. And unlike so many of the top items that managed to break new ground for TF2, my first of the bottom items really fails to innovate on an old idea. The Dapper Dickens is an all-class top hat and glasses that really fails to make any impact on me at all. I'd love to provide more commentary on this item, but unfortunately it just fails to impress me even at this moment. It is easily one of the most forgettable Assassin's Creed hats in the game. And the trend of underwhelming high-tier items continues on with our next item, the Bare Bones Bones for Heavy. This item is essentially the perfect foil to the makeover, because unlike the makeover, which has a very clever and seamless design, the Bare Bones Bears whatever it is has a really clunky name, an awkward design, and it really fails to make Heavy look intimidating despite being covered in bones. Outside of the really cool paint region, this item really has very little going for it, and it's really a waste of the elite tier weapon grade. Sadly, number 3 on my list isn't much better, although I will admit that it's a cute homage to Valve's prior games, and that's the Medical Emergency. The issues with this item are apparent on first glance. It's too blocky, too angular, and it just fails to make its mark. Compared to all other medical handbags, this thing just sticks out like a bruised ego. And just like the Medical Emergency, this next item also fails to adapt Valve's other source material of TF2. Of course, this means I'm referring to the Counter Sniper set, which includes the cream cover and the preventative measure for Sniper. The underlying issue with this set is that unlike the Upper Hand, which manages to simplify itself and adapt to TF2's painterly art style, these items are simply just too gritty and tactical for their own good. On top of being generally undesirable, they're also very inflexible with other TF2 cosmetics. Their versatility is utterly none, because you pretty much have to use these items together, and at that point, you pretty much give them 2 of your item slots for essentially just a gritty military sniper look. And personally, it's not even that great of a look itself. The vest is over-designed to hell with all these pouches and random straps and other clutter on it. It just makes the sniper look so out of place. The sniper is a slim, trim bushman, so all this military hardware is just weighing him down for no added benefit. In truth, this item set fails on all fronts. And this final item in my list, I'm just going to do this in one take because I cannot be bothered to try this over again. The ludicrously lunatic Lunan Fedora. Goodness sakes, this thing sucks so much. After saying that word scramble of a name, I'm just going to refer to this thing as the triple L lid, because that's pretty much what this is entirely. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I have a great dislike for this item. It's difficult for me to express this apprehension without coming off as a personal attack, so let me just go ahead and say that I don't know the creator of this item, Raposa. I don't hate them personally, and it's not their fault that their work was chosen by Valve, but let's be quite frank here. You're making this stuff for the community for free under the impression that you're going to be paid money for it eventually being added to the game. And I applaud you for putting in the effort and for contributing, but this theme is so fucking forced. It is truly miserable. And if we want to talk about a lack of synergy, a lack of versatility, a lack of cohesion with the rest of the TF2 loadouts, this thing is fucking awful. When I look at the works page of this item, when I see the mock loadouts that are so common, this thing has nothing going for it. He literally had to invent new like item decorations just to make this thing even slightly interesting. I really don't like being this negative, but the mockups for this thing are god-awful, gaudy, garish, and honestly, all these like slapped on light fixtures to these weapons just make them look like crap. There is no amount of brute forcing you can do to make this thing any less of an eyesore. All this obnoxious tubing on random weapons we know and love is just gonna make people look even more sideways at TF2's art style. And the last thing anyone needs is more video essays about how this game's art style is dying. And the thing about this is just that even when you put this hat on as a Neon Annihilator Pyro, which is obviously the inspiration for it, it does not get better. It does not look like alike at all. Even on Koth King, because this item uses tubing, whereas every other neon sign in the game uses backlit signage. It is just a total fail. I don't really want to shit on it anymore, but honestly, this is just the worst of the worst. And 2023 deserved a much better all-class hat to go into their Smithmas or Halloween or whatever the hell this thing was at it. So anyways, with me not really bothering to edit this last part, I just want to say thank you all for listening, for tuning in. I hope to make more of these videos. This one was sort of kind of fun to make when I was, just allowing myself to talk massive shit at the end. But yeah, if you have any more ideas, any more comments, questions, you can leave them in the comments. If you want to help me make better videos, then share this around and push me to keep making more of them, because commentary, interaction, that's the lifeblood of this channel and the lifeblood of my desire to make more videos. So yeah, I'll see you all around. Meta out, and keep making awesome shit.